Hey guys, so this video is going to be a review of episode 7 of Incorporated Executables. I'm going to start off this video talking about Theo. I like Theo a lot as a character. He's quite possibly one of my favorite characters. He was in this episode quite a bit, which I liked, but there's something that I really want to talk about in this episode, because Theo is raped in this episode, and it is very explicitly rape, and I'm very bothered by that scene. One, because I don't think it was necessary. It seemed like a gratuitous rape scene. It's not really serving any purpose in the plot except for maybe emphasizing how terrible people are, but I don't think that that was necessary because we already knew that. So I hate the scene being there for that reason. Secondly, because Theo is male and the general nature of the scene, I think many people would kind of push it aside as not a big deal or not even rape, but it 100% is, and I don't think the show is going to address that. I'm really worried about the show never even bringing it up again and acting like it didn't happen. Maybe they will surprise me and actually deal with it more, but I'm just very uncomfortable of the idea of there being this rape scene that does not seem necessary to the plot in any way, shape, or form, and is probably not going to be appropriately addressed. And so I am very much, I don't want to say angry, except kind of angry about that scene. It made me uncomfortable, which isn't necessarily bad if it's serving a purpose, but I don't think that this was. So I'm not very happy about that, and I wanted to get that out of the way first. Moving on, Roger's body is found in this episode, and I knew that that was going to happen, obviously. Elena also sees Ben in this episode, which is another thing that obviously had to happen at some point, but for whatever reason I hadn't really given it much thought. So when Elena saw Ben and kind of had that look of shock, I kind of had this oh yeah, she hasn't seen him recently. Or I just never gave much thought for whatever reason about how at some point they would have to have a scene where they finally saw each other again. And I don't think it was so much that I didn't think about how that would happen. I didn't think it would play out like that. Ben was erasing the guy from Inazaki's memory. I feel like I should have had the realization then that that would get used on him or threatened to be used on him or something, but I didn't. Very interested in the idea of Ben wiping his memory of Aaron and just becoming Ben. I think it could be really interesting to see how that plays out, because that's gonna make him forget Elena, which is his entire purpose of being there. And so it'll be interesting to see if he stays Ben, if he finds out about Aaron again, or how long it would take. And I don't know, it just raises all of these questions for how everything's gonna play out. Smaller detail from the episode that I really liked is seeing Julian's family and seeing how everyone else in the company kind of keeps their distance from them because they're scared of them, because that seems to it makes so much sense that his family would be ostracized by that, considering his job. It wasn't something that was super important in this episode or anything like that, but I think it was the nice kind of touch showing us that. Laura is in the red zone, which I was super excited to see more of her in the red zone. She starts helping all of these people with medical issues, and then the guy whose name I can't remember because I'm terrible at names shows up and threatens her, wants her to open a clinic. This is a storyline that I'm extremely excited about. Laura has been one of my favorite characters from basically the first episode. That she feels different than everyone else. I feel like everyone else kind of has an air of you never quite know what they're going to do, and then kind of, I don't want to say that they're bad people. I don't want to say that Laura's an angel who does nothing wrong, because that's definitely not the case. But I think the thing about Laura is she seems to be the only one who doesn't quite view the company as corrupt. My take on it is the people who live in the red zones obviously hate Spiga and the corporations and the whole system. But even the people within Spiga, it's they all know that the system is corrupt and that there's bad people and that all this underhanded stuff is going on. Laura is the only character I feel who we've never really got a hint of her understanding how terrible Spiga is. Clearly she knows life is not great in the red zones, but we've never really gotten any hints that like she views Spiga as bad, which I find interesting. We haven't really gotten her views on Spiga at all. That hasn't really been where her conflict is focused. So I do think that there's a chance that she does find Spiga like corrupt and stuff, and it just hasn't been like her focus recently. I find that interesting because it makes her a bit different from the other characters who all seem to either live in the red zones, so they hate Spiga obviously, or they work for Spiga and are like involved in the corruption. Laura is the only character we have who lives in the green zones and is therefore like privileged and has all of this money and stuff, but who hasn't been shown to do anything like underhanded or like backstabby or anything like that, which is interesting. Really like the idea of her like helping people and getting involved in the red zones when she was so scared of the red zones before, and like connecting with the people in the red zones. I think that that could be a very interesting storyline. There are two things about it like going into the future though that I'm like thinking about. A guy whose name I think I'm gonna have to start remembering, who wants her to set up the clinic. I could see them developing a romantic relationship between him and Laura. I could see the show going there, and I don't really want them to. Granted, we have only seen the guy for one episode, and he hasn't really, unless I'm forgetting something that happened in the episode, he hasn't really done anything bad. Like, he kind of threatened Laura, and that was questionable. But considering the people on this show, it's one of the less questionable things we've seen. For whatever reason, I just don't quite like him, and I would prefer there not to be a relationship developed between him and Laura. So I'm kind of hoping that they don't go that way, at least as of right now. Maybe I'll change my mind, but I don't think I'll change my mind, because this is one of those things where I feel like I've like set my mind on it enough that it's not going to change. Ooh, storyline with Laura. I feel like I've started to figure out like the sort of trajectory that Laura and Ben are going to take in like their relationship. Was interesting to me that just occurred as I was filming this video earlier when that happened, because before this episode I've been thinking about, well, Ben's obviously still in love with Elena, and so if he rescues Elena he's going to have to abandon Laura, and that's terrible. I've been wondering before how Laura would feel about that and like how it would play out for her. And then obviously when we saw what happened to families of people who betrayed the company or whatever, if Ben left her behind she would probably be thrown into the red zones unless her mom saved her. So I was thinking about all of that, like if Ben rescues Elena or like gets found out as a traitor or whatever, what happens to Laura? If their marriage is obviously over, or at least most likely, but like beyond that, what happens to her? And I feel like this storyline is the beginnings of me actually having an answer to that, because now obviously I feel like Laura's kind of found a purpose, and even if Ben, like even if Ben got found out as a traitor at this point and she got thrown into the red zones, like she now has something she could do in the red zones, which is far more than other people who have been thrown out of Spiga probably had. So she like has a purpose now, and she's almost made herself safe without knowing it, because her husband is a traitor, and now if she gets thrown into the red zones she has sort of safety net almost, which no one else had in that situation that we know of, at least. But then it took me a bit longer to kind of think about everything and realize that Ben is getting ready to erase Aaron from his memory. And so when he does that, he's going to forget about Elena. And then one would assume probably be in love with Laura and like expect a like normal marriage between the two of them. A very interesting timing for those two things, and it's almost like they're gonna switch, not in the sense that Laura's going to be in love with someone else, but in the sense that I don't think that she's going to tell Ben what she's doing, and so she's going to be keeping a secret from him when he's going to have his mind wiped and not remember his own secrets. I do think he'll get his memory back at some point, but for a while at least, it's going to kind of be like things are reversed. And that's very interesting to me. I think this episode made me think about the future of the show and like what's going to happen next more than any of the other episodes so far, so that's cool. I will see you guys later. Bye.